Welcome to the deep dive. Thanks for joining us. You've given us your sources, and well, our job is to pull out the most important, most interesting bits for you.
That's the plan.
Today, we're diving into Juneteenth. We're working from the Juneteenth.pdf you sent over.
Hmm?
And our mission really is to get past just the date. We want to explore the culture, the traditions, the ongoing impact.
Absolutely. It's not just history, is it? It's a living tradition.
Yeah.
It tells a huge story about resilience, about freedom, and the sort of ongoing struggle for it in America.
Yeah, it seems to capture so much of the African-American journey.
It really does. Its significance just keeps unfolding.
Okay, so let's start at the very core. June 19th, 1865, Galveston, Texas. General Gordon Granger reads General Order Number 3. What did that mean right then and there?
Well, it meant freedom.
Right then.
The order declared all enslaved people were free. A huge transformative moment for those people.
And this is key, the Emancipation Proclamation had already happened, right? Much earlier.
Exactly. January 1st, 1863. So there's this gap.
Right, a big gap. Why the delay? Why did it take more than 2 years for the news to really land in Texas?
Well, Texas was geographically pretty isolated. It was the most remote Confederate state, and there just wasn't much Union Army presence there for a long time.
Ah.
So enforcing the Emancipation Proclamation was really tied to where the Union Army could reach. Granger arriving in Galveston, that was the moment it became official, really undeniable in that last Confederate holdout.
So that isolation kind of shaped the early celebrations, maybe, made them unique to Texas initially.
Yeah, you could say that. It fostered a particular kind of beginning for Juneteenth commemorations there.
Now, the sources mention something really interesting about the history of the celebrations themselves. They grew, then kind of faded during Jim Crow, but then saw this big comeback during the Civil Rights Movement. Can you trace that arc a bit?
Yeah, that's crucial. So initially, huge joy, right? Spontaneous celebrations turned into annual events.
Makes sense.
But then Jim Crow laws coming, segregation, voter suppression, all of that. It definitely put a damper on public celebrations. It became harder, sometimes dangerous, to openly celebrate freedom.
So the spirit kind of went underground a bit.
It never disappeared entirely.
Yeah.
But the civil rights movement, focused squarely on equality and justice, really breathed new life into it. It became a symbol again, a way to reclaim that history.
And now it's a federal holiday since 2021.
Which is another massive step in recognizing its importance. A long time coming.
Okay, so we have the history set up, but the sources really emphasize the cultural side too. It's about freedom, sure, but also resilience, joy. It sounds like much more than just remembering a date.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really vibrant expression of African-American culture. Think about the gatherings, family reunions, community picnics. That's huge, especially considering families were deliberately torn apart during slavery.
Right, reclaiming that connection.
Exactly. And faith plays a big role too, you know. Prayer services are often part of it, reflecting that spiritual strength that was and is so important.
And the sources dig even deeper, mentioning links to African traditions. What's that about?
Yeah, this is fascinating. You see these threads connecting across continents and centuries. The document mentions festivals in Africa tied to harvests, times of freedom and renewal.
Like what kinds of festivals?
Well, for instance, yam festivals in West Africa. They celebrate survival, a good harvest, expressing gratitude. There's a similar feeling in Juneteenth, celebrating survival, new beginnings, hope for the future.
Interesting parallel.
And even though Kwanzaa is much more recent, you know, one of its principles, Kujishagulia, self-determination, deciding your own destiny. That really resonates with the core meaning of Juneteenth, too.
And what about the griot tradition, the African storytellers? How does that connect?
Well, griots were keepers of history, culture, genealogy, primarily through spoken word, music, stories.
The living libraries, basically.
Kind of, yeah. And you see that legacy in Juneteenth celebrations. Music is central. Speeches are important. People share family histories, oral histories. It's about keeping those stories of struggle, but also triumph alive.
So it's baked right into how the day is celebrated.
Very much so.
Okay, let's talk about those celebrations we can, see. The parades, the festivals with music and dancing, reading the Emancipation Proclamation, and definitely the barbecues.
Yes. These are the sort of outward expressions of the day's meaning. Parades in festivals are public affirmations, right? Community strength on display.
A visible joy.
Exactly. Reading the proclamation out loud, that's a direct link back to the historical moment. A powerful reminder.
And the barbecues, more than just food, I imagine.
Oh, definitely. Communal meals, sharing food, fellowship things, often denied or controlled during slavery. So it's a reclaiming of that simple fundamental joy of gathering and eating together.
And the Juneteenth flag, red, white, and blue, what's the significance there?
It's very intentional. Using the American flag's colors signifies that this is an American story, that African Americans are central to the nation's identity and its promise of freedom. Even if that promise has been historically unfulfilled, it claims belonging.
Let's shift to personal expression. Clothing. The source mentions early Juneteenths. People wore their absolute best clothes. Why was that so significant?
Think about it. Under slavery, clothing was often minimal, rags, part of the dehumanization process. So dressing up in your finest clothes after emancipation, that was a powerful act of reclaiming dignity.
A visual statement of freedom and self-worth.
Absolutely. It was saying, I am a person, I have value, I am free. A visible assertion of their new status.
And how does that translate to today? We see traditional African attire, the Pan-African colors.
Right. So today, wearing dashikis or other African garments connects people to their heritage, expresses cultural pride. The red, black, and green, those Pan-African colors symbolize Black liberation, unity, self-determination.
And the slogan shirts, free-ish since 1865.
Yeah, those are interesting too. They speak to the complex reality, right? Acknowledging the historical freedom granted in 1865, but also the fact that the fight for true equality isn't over. Phrases like, still fighting for freedom, make that explicit.
Music feels absolutely central to this. Gospel, blues, jazz, funk, R&B, soul, hip-hop. It's like a soundtrack to the Black experience in America.
It really is. Each genre carries pieces of the story. Gospel brings the hope and the spiritual bedrock. Blues voices the pain and hardship. Jazz, R&B, soul, they express joy, love, resilience, self-expression.
And hip-hop.
Hip-hop continues that tradition, often providing sharp social commentary, speaking truth to power about contemporary issues. It all flows together.
Are there specific songs strongly tied to Juneteenth? Lift Every Voice and Sing comes up.
Definitely. It's often called the Black National Anthem for a reason. It's about hope, resilience, faith through struggle. Singing it at Juneteenth connects generations.
Me and others.
Oh, Sam Cooke's A Change is Going to Come that captures the yearning and the certainty of progress during the Civil Rights era. James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. Pure defiance and pride.
Powerful stuff.
And even now, you hear it in artists like Beyonce, Kendrick Lamar. Their song, Freedom, taps right into those core Juneteenth themes. The message endures.
Beyond music, what about literature and art? Ralph Ellison's novel Juneteenth is mentioned, even though it's unfinished.
Right. Ellison wrestled with the complexities of freedom and identity post-slavery. And Annette Gordon Reed's book on Juneteenth is fantastic. It blends personal memoir with sharp historical analysis, especially grounded in Texas. Gives you such a deep feel for the holiday's roots.
And visual art.
Huge. Murals, paintings, street art celebrating Black heroes, depicting historical moments, imagining freedom. It's another way the story is told and kept alive visually.
There's also this deeper emotional layer mentioned in the sources, joyful resistance, healing, restorative justice. What does that mean in this context?
Well, joyful resistance is about celebrating freedom and life despite ongoing struggles and systemic oppression. It's an act of defiance in itself, finding joy amidst hardship.
That makes sense.
And the call for healing and restorative justice acknowledges that emancipation didn't magically fix everything. The wounds of slavery are deep, intergenerational. Juneteenth is also about recognizing that ongoing need for repair.
Okay, we have to talk about the food. The sources emphasize red foods, red velvet cake, strawberry soda, watermelon. What's the symbolism there?
The color red is really significant. It's often interpreted as symbolizing the bloodshed and sacrifice of enslaved ancestors, but also their resilience and strength. So eating these foods is both remembrance and celebration.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah. And then you have all the other classics, collard greens, black-eyed peas for luck, cornbread, fried chicken, sweet potatoes. These are staples of African-American soul food, connecting people to culinary heritage and shared traditions.
It's interesting how even nature gets woven in. Cotton, obviously, representing enslaved labor, but also okra, collards, yams.
Right. Cotton is that stark reminder of the forced labor system. But the other crops, many with African origins, represent cultural continuity, sustenance, the diaspora's journey, and resilience.
Any animals associated with it, besides maybe the barbecue?
Well, historically, oxen or cattle for those large barbecues, yes. And sometimes the red cardinal is mentioned, symbolically seen as representing perseverance, maybe ancestors watching over. Little symbolic touches.
And key people, Dr. Opal Lee is highlighted, the grandmother of Juneteenth.
Her story is incredible. Decades of activism. Her walk from Fort Worth to D.C. at age 89 to advocate for the federal holiday. Just amazing persistence. She really embodied the push to get Juneteenth the recognition it deserved.
A true force.
Absolutely. And you have to mention General Gordon Granger again, the historical figure who delivered the news in Galveston. He's part of that foundational story.
And pop culture has picked up on Juneteenth, too.
Oh, definitely. Movies like Miss Juneteenth give modern perspectives. TV shows like Atlanta, Blackish, Queen Sugar have had Juneteenth-themed episodes.
Bringing it to a wider audience.
Exactly. And as we mentioned, artists like Beyoncé and Kendrick Lamar incorporating its themes helps keep the conversation going, especially for younger generations.
Let's talk locations. Galveston is the birthplace, obviously. But Emancipation Park in Houston, that sounds special.
It really is. It was purchased in the 1870s by formerly enslaved people, pooling their resources specifically to buy land where they could celebrate Juneteenth.
Wow, that's powerful.
That's a massive symbol of self-determination and community building right after emancipation. And now you see major celebrations in D.C. Opal Lee's walk continues in Fort Worth. It's become truly national.
And there's an economic dimension, too. Black-owned businesses at festivals.
Yes, that's become a really important focus. Supporting Black entrepreneurs, circulating dollars within the community. It ties into the broader theme of economic empowerment and justice, which is deeply linked to the legacy of slavery and its aftermath.
Technology's even played a role, especially recently.
Yeah, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of virtual Juneteenth celebrations pop up. Online events, streaming performances, people found ways to connect.
Even in video games.
Apparently so. Things like Animal Crossing had in-game events, and big tech companies like Google and Apple now acknowledge it. It shows that growing mainstream awareness.
What about the language around Juneteenth? Freedom Day, Jubilee Day.
Yeah, those nicknames capture the feeling. Jubilee especially has that biblical echo of liberation and celebration.
And Red Up.
Because that's slang.
It seems like a community term, yeah. Specifically about eating the traditional red foods for the celebration. Fun, right?
Yeah. And mottos like, none are free until all are free.
That one really connects Juneteenth to broader, ongoing struggles for justice. It universalizes the message.
Are there other symbols besides the flag?
The sources mention a few. The broken chain is pretty clear, symbolizing the end of bondage. The rising sun on the flag suggests a new beginning, hope. And the Star of Texas grounds it in its origin, but also symbolizes hope for Black Americans everywhere. Okay, finally, let's touch on the modern political side. The sources link Juneteenth's federal recognition to discussions around voting rights, police reform, reparations, particularly after the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests.
Right. Making it a federal holiday didn't happen in a vacuum. It came amidst heightened national conversations about racial injustice and systemic inequality.
So the holiday amplifies those conversations.
It provides an annual focal point, a reminder of the historical roots of these contemporary issues. It fuels activism and policy debates around everything from voting access to police accountability to the very complex, necessary discussion about reparations.
And the impact of the 2020 protests.
That definitely accelerated the push for federal recognition and brought renewed attention to Juneteenth's meaning in the context of ongoing struggles for Black lives and liberation. It's also gaining more recognition globally within the African diaspora.
So, wrapping this up, it's clear Juneteenth is way more than just marking a historical event on June 19th.
Oh, absolutely. It's this incredibly rich mix of history, culture, resilience, community, and that ongoing striving for true freedom and equality.
It feels like a living thing, constantly evolving.
Exactly. It really embodies the joy of liberation, the power of community, and that persistent push for progress.
So maybe the thought to leave you, the listener, with is this. How does the way Juneteenth continues to evolve reflect our larger journey as a society towards justice and equity? And what role can understanding and maybe celebrating this day play in that journey for you?
A great question to ponder.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. We really hope you'll continue exploring the rich history and culture of Juneteenth on your own.